Hello everyone, and welcome to a different video series than you may have seen the past week or couple weeks here surrounding more consistent diet and exercise towards a leaner summer. I wanted to take an opportunity to delve into a little different style of video, more mechanically inclined, which is ultimately the goal of this channel, to be a little bit of a shared spectrum of fitness content as well as automotive content. With that being said, this is our 99 Acura CL 2.3 Premium that is going to be receiving some general maintenance here today. This is one of 4 vehicles between the small fleet for my wife and myself. Over there we have our 06 TL 6-speed, and we have our 17 second gen Coyote F-150 outside, as well as my wife's newer 19 RAV as well. With that, this 99 has been in our family for about 8 years now. Been maintaining it that entire duration as it's been with the family, primarily as my younger sister's first vehicle. Through high school, through college, she recently upgraded to a 19 RAV, similar to my wife in that sense. And I purchased this from her as more of a economic commuter vehicle. So we're just bringing it up to par, of course, with a vehicle that has had a little bit of age on it. It needs some general maintenance, and that's what we'll be doing here today, as well as sharing with you guys some new pneumatic tools to make our life a little bit easier as we perform this type of work. This 99 has about 127,000 on it. Timing belt was done about 27,000 miles ago. And what we're going to be doing to it is an alternator replacement / opportunity for upgrade from an 80 amp OEM alternator to a 95 amp also OEM alternator option from a 98 Odyssey. So we'll show you a little bit about that. Ideally that will work out beautifully. We also have a refresh of pads and rotors on the rear, as well as a new right front ABS wheel speed sensor that we'll delve into and show you the brakes and the ABS sensor at a different date. With that being said, I'll take you guys over to the workbench, show you those pneumatic tools that we've added to the toolbox, as well as the parts that we're going to be installing. Actually put a fitting on a new pneumatic tool here together, and then show you guys the quick jacks, get this thing up on those, and get to work. All right, so we're here at the tool bench, right in front of the vehicle there. And what I want to take you guys through is just an introduction to some of the new tools to the fleet. Again, pneumatic pieces that are going to make this type of work that much easier as we grow the garage to be more of a kind of serious workspace. So I don't know if you guys have seen recently, Advanced Auto seems to be liquidizing and like hot sailing a lot of their DeWalt pneumatic tools. So we picked up a heavy duty 1/2 inch with a nice swivel for 3/8. Hose is sitting over there, you guys can't see, but over there in the corner, as well as 3/8 ratchet. Same swivel, again, just to make that working around the hose just a little bit easier. This has worked incredibly well for 150-pound lug nuts on the F-150. This thing's yet to be tested. That's pretty minuscule work for a heavier duty size like this. 3 different speeds, only in forward, just single speed and reverse. Ratchet's just got directional controls there as well. So that's all well and good, but there's a third tool that we're going to be looking at. Swivel for that. Quick connect here as well, and some Teflon tape in preparation for an Astro Nano. So these are not, news to anybody by any means. I think they actually have a longer reach, kind of like Ingersoll Rand has, kind of like you see quite a few places, but the Nano's pretty tried and true. Picked it up here a little bit ago. This is going to be nice to have in tighter spots, specifically around knuckles, rotors, getting brake caliper brackets off, all that good stuff. And we're just going to assemble it here while we're talking. So we just have this little plug down here. We have some oil to put in it. And what we're going to do here is we're just going to attach our swivel with some Teflon tape and get this thing prepared for the work ahead. While we get this together, again, we're also going to kind of go over the parts for the CL here. And with that, we really just have, again, new pads, rotors, new 95 amp alternator, which is kind of a gamble. So that's again for a 98 Odyssey 2.3. So again, not really meant for the CL in that regard. However, a lot of different forum posts, a lot of different individuals have reported some, success with that. So we're going to give it a shot here. And of course, we have to return the core back to, in this case, it'd be Rock Auto. And we will see if this works, if we get good voltage. We're also going to be trying to get a little bit more amperage out of it, again, in preparation for an audio system, a true audio system to be put in place there. So that's kind of a nice upgrade that we can, hopefully make happen here, again, with more of an OEM style. We're not really playing the high price tag of a high output alternator. We don't need 250, we don't need 300 amps of output for the system that we're going to be doing with probably a 400.4 4 channel and probably 1000.1 mono to run 212s. And then we have also some mid-range upgrades, some Alpine Type R speakers already installed, and a Kenwood newer style DDX 770 HD, I want to say, one of the first ones to have an HDMI input in the back. It's a non-CarPlay model, but I've had it for a long time. I've had the Type R front components and rear coaxial 6x9s for a long time as well. So really it's just going to be a lot of reuse equipment. I have a couple Type R 12s, kind of not the most recent gen, but the gen that was around for a long time. Black cone, red R, not the old gray models. So I have those sitting over here in a prefab, and we will be constructing our own custom enclosure for the CL here. Table saw in the corner, so we have all the right tools to essentially make that happen, and that'll be a fun project for us to do here together. So yeah, so with that being said, some nice upgrades happening to the CL here. It's really just becoming a little bit more bulletproof for some longer traveling. So occasionally make a trip down to Des Moines, which is about 3 hours away from where I'm at here in Minnesota, southern Minnesota. So been taking the truck, been taking the TL, vehicles that either require, premium gas like the TL does, or vehicles that are just a little bit heavier on gas like the F-150. So give a chance to commute with something a little bit, again, just easier on fuel. This is essentially the whole reason for the CL to be around. So we want to make sure that it's reliable and not bump you here again, but make sure that it's just living up to its reputation that it's had in the family for a while. Again, anything with age is just something to be attentive to. So looks like our Teflon tape, this isn't the best Teflon tape here, but we'll make sure it doesn't leak. And again, it's already pre-oiled, so just for video purposes there. So let's take a look here at the parts we're going to be installing in the CL and some of the supporting pieces for that job. First of which is going to be this Denso 95 amp alternator, again meant for a 98 Odyssey. So I've already taken this out, inspected it, made sure that 4-pin plug plugs in just fine to the current plug as it stands here today. Made sure this post is kind of in the general same vicinity. This is meant for a harness clip, so kind of a retaining spot there. That's the same amount of grooves for the belt. This thickness appears to be the same, and this down here also. So it's pretty much a spitting image. We'll take it off and compare as we do that. We also have some contact cleaner. Make sure this 4-pin is nice and clean. You can see maybe a little bit of gunk down in there, so we'll just make sure that is all free from the other plug, again, from that test plug. We also have the front right ABS wheel speed sensor. So this CL is pretty notorious for just eating sensors. Aftermarket ones, for whatever reason, they just don't seem to last forever. So we're just going to restore ABS function. Not the biggest deal. We've been driving around without it for a long time, but Holstein brand from Rock Auto. And then just a refresh of the rear pads and rotors. Again, it has newer pads as of Christmas, some Beck and Arnley that I prefer to use those, or Bosch QuietCast, or Akabono, or Brembo for the TL, for example. Be more of an OEM pad for them. But the rotors on the rear have kind of a nasty groove that I believe has compromised. I'm not going to try to reuse the Beck and Arnley pads if they're a little bit too far gone. So we'll inspect those, but got some pads just in case. Again, some QuietCast branded Bosch equipment here. I think what's on there right now is Power Stop. Again, more brand you find on Rock Auto. So we're just going to be replacing those with some other units. And next shot, I'll take you guys over to the hood and show you the alternator replacement, the tensioner removal, and get some light going in there and get this alternator swapped out. All right, so we're going to start with the alternator tensioner, which is going to be located right down here. I will show you guys that as we get a little bit closer. But first things first, we're going to disconnect the battery, get ready for kind of swapping this piece over. So we're going to move on over here. And we have kind of a larger Torx that we're ready to use here. All right, so it looks like these aftermarket battery terminals are going to be a T40. It was T40 before that noise there, so I'm going to go ahead and hopefully crack these guys loose. Perfect. Go ahead and reconnect the terminal just to loosen this up a little bit more here. So these are aftermarket terminals. I'll show you what they look like here in a moment. Go ahead and get some cabling out of the way here. Might be a little difficult to see, but those terminals over there, get those off. Get this battery terminal well out of the way so it doesn't come in contact. Don't have any concern there. Perfect, looks pretty good to me. Again, we're using a T40 Torx there to tighten and also loosen that terminal. Seems like a perfect fit, so just make sure we don't strip that out at all. All right, next we're going to go ahead and loosen this tensioner. Go ahead and get the size on that. And go ahead and think that we're looking at maybe a 12. Maybe a 10. Let's see. Yeah, looking at a 10. Okay. Go ahead and get these things removed. This extra, the battery post here, as well as get the alternator unplugged. So this also has a little dust boot over it, a little weather protection. So we'll go ahead and move this rubber back, expose our retaining clip, give it a depression, pop it up. Then we're also going to squeeze or release that retaining clip here with a small screwdriver. There's one side of it. I'll show you guys what I'm doing here in just a moment. Perfect. So fully intact. Just pressing on each of these sides here and releasing that tab accordingly. So it looks good. Again, we're gonna use hand tools for a little bit of this. No rush to break anything. So we'll take this 10, swivel 10, go ahead and remove this battery post. Hold on to this very special nut. Go ahead and remove our single aught cable as well as our factory ring terminal here. Move this off to the side. I believe we might be able to get this out of this retaining clip. Be very gentle not to ruin that protective sleeve. Go ahead and leave this nut on here. Perfect. And now we're going to go ahead and remove tension on this belt. All right, so we're going to start with a 14 mil on the top alternator bolt, and we're going to move, see if we can gain some real estate here by moving our power steering reservoir. So go ahead and take this out of the bracket, see if we can kind of move this off to the side just a little bit here. Go ahead and just kind of move that just like that. Not putting too much tension on the hoses, but just gaining a little bit more room down to this top alternator bolt. And we're going to take a little extension to do that. We're just going to crack that guy loose. So that's nice and come out nicely. I think our below one's going to be 12, so we'll just verify that. Perfect, so we're looking at 12 there. Go ahead and see if we can get our ratchet on here. Just need a small extension to make that happen. And again, we don't need too much. We're going to try something like that. We're kind of backed up against the frame here, so we just don't want to be too tight on it. It's close, but not quite. So let's try 12 swivel on a 3/8. Again, just don't want to back ourselves into a corner. That 12 swivel just isn't quite stable enough, so we're just looking for the right combination here. All right, so going 1/2 inch 12 chrome to a 1/2 inch to 3/8 adapter. See if that's got enough wiggle room here. And it does. So we're just cracking these guys loose. And then we're going to take our 10. Now we have some nice tension relief on our belt. So we're going to just continue to move this. And we're going to do it until we can get our belt off of our alternator. Got a little bit more to go, it looks like. Okay. And there we are. So it's almost nearly threaded all the way out. Again, we're just moving our belt off our alternator there. And we're just going to continue to remove those 2 bolts to free up our alternator. We could use pneumatics here, but slow and steady. We have no reason to rush. And again, we're kind of close to that frame as far as the ratchet's concerned. Have about an inch and a half of clearance here, so we're just, again, no rush to make sure that we get this out of here properly. Go ahead and remove this tensioner bolt. Again, I don't believe we need to remove our 12 all the way, but we're going to remove this bolt to the tensioner. We're going to slap our 14 back on for the top bolt. Continue removing that guy. Need a little extension for that. Now you guys can see how nice and easy it is to thread out now that we've released tension. I think we don't have too rusty of a pass-through for threads. Here's our top alternator bolt. Let's just see how free we are here. So a little back and forth wiggling. See if we need to release anything more with that 12. It looks like we do, so we're just going to kind of put this back in place all the way. So we are able to confirm that we need to remove that 12 all the way. So in order to hold that, we're going to reinsert our bolts. We can hold what the 12 threads into, which is the tensioner. A little bit of a strange design on these older Hondas, but that's okay. Don't have any automatic belt tensioners like you'd find on the TL sitting over there or anything quite like that, but again, that's okay. So we're kind of partially threaded in there on that tensioner bolt, and we are going to continue to remove our 12 millimeter on the bottom. Again, that looks to kind of be captive, so it's just holding the bottom part of the alternator kind of bracket in place. And then what we're going to do is we're going to wash our hands, do a little prep on this new alternator, make sure that it will fit, just so in case it doesn't and the experiment doesn't quite go how we're hoping, that we can return that part and not install it and dirty it up for a return. So it looks like we're actually just removing a small nut. 12 millimeter nut here. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and I'm going to remove this tensioner bolt one more time. So I believe we'll allow this pass-through bolt. So the tensioner is going into here and drawing tension on the alternator to draw the belt up. And then that's our guy. So we're going to remove that. Now our alternator, famous last words, should be free, and it does appear to be free. So here she is, Honda part, Denso unit. Again, been kind of giving us some trouble for a little while here. So again, suspect this thing to be, still standing, but kind of on its last legs, if you will. So we're going to go ahead and swap it over for our new alternator after we make a kind of brief comparison. All right, so we have old alternator sitting there. We have our new unit here. Again, made for a different model, still a Denso part. Still for the 2.3 motor, but just a higher amperage output, 80 on this guy, 95 on this guy. So we're just gonna see if this has any merit to it before we go ahead and fully commit to the install. So that thickness, hard to see maybe on video, but that thickness is the same. We're gonna flip these guys around again, being a little careful not to get the new unit too dirty. That thickness is also the same. If we kind of switch to make apples to apples, we're gonna count our grooves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 grooves. Casing looks very similar. Again, we have the same harness retention clip there. Those are in the same spot as well. This Denso part, hard to say from the Honda manufacturing, but we do have a 95 amp, perfect. 210 01 91. And again, this 4-pin also matches up. So we see the same heat sinks here. Again, we see the same mounting spots, almost the same backing. It's funny how the ND is also the same stamp. Hard to see on video too, but these plugs are the same and it plugs in just fine. I thought we needed some dielectric or some contact cleaner, but it looks like we just have some dielectric grease present in here. So really, all we have to worry about is transferring over this nut. Perfect. And then we don't really have a whole lot of prep to do aside from putting this bolt in the bottom. I believe that's all that's really needed there. And we're gonna go ahead and move over and reinstall this unit. Fingers crossed we get a good charging out of it, but we will soon find out. Okay, time for the install here. Go ahead and get you guys some good lighting. Again, angle might not be the best with just kind of all the chaos going in there, but go ahead and get this thing going. Again, we're trying to be as clean as we can just in case this doesn't quite work out in our favor. Let's go ahead and remove this bolt just because we have a sliding groove down there. Go ahead and thread this guy in. I already see something that might be a little kind of messing with us a little bit, so we're just going to take a moment. Have a little bit of a kind of a guide pin that's kind of messing with us. All right, so here's what we ended up doing to move that alternator like pivot bolt or flange kind of back. So we used actually the tensioner bolt because it was long enough with a big enough socket for the kind of pivoting sleeve to move into, and use mechanical leverage to tighten and pull that sleeve in. Then we have the new alternator sitting in there. So that's something good to know. Shouldn't really have to do that, but it was kind of seized up a little bit, and conventional methods didn't really work too well. So I ended up using a little bit of, like I said, mechanical leverage, kind of like you'd use to pull out like a ball joint. And that ended up working quite well for us. So again, a little unorthodox, but hey, if it works, it works. So now we're going to reconstruct. Just put our 14 back in the top. We're going to put our kind of pivoting bolt in the bottom here. Okay, so that bolt is in. Go ahead and get our nut started on that bolt. Okay, so that is started. go ahead and get our belt slipped back on top of our alternator here. Beautiful. And now we're going to take this and start winding tension. I'm going to leave those bolts cracked loose until we set tension. So right now we're just looking to start our threads. See if we can get better sight in there. I end up having to mess with this bolt down here to get the thread, kind of the pass-through lined up, and that's okay. See if we can do this a little backwards here. Looks like threads are started. Nice sound there. All right, we're getting good. Just really doing this by hand until we don't have to anymore, until we can't really anymore. So again, we're just setting tension here. That seems pretty good. Biggest thing is we just don't want to be too tight, but we also don't want to be too loose. So we can be a little bit tighter. It's a little bit more slack than we had previously. Just going to tighten this up a little bit more. And then once we're satisfied with our tension, we will lock the alternator in place. Getting there. I'd say we're almost there. Go ahead and see if we can make some longer strides with our ratchet. Good belt deflection, maybe just a little bit tighter. Again, we really don't want squealing on startup from perhaps too tight of a belt. But again, we also don't want it to be too loose. So a nice balancing act. There are tools to measure this too, but I'm really just kind of going off of feel here. I think we'll give that a shot. Seems pretty healthy deflection to me. I'm going to go ahead and tighten that bottom bolt first at 12. And then we're going to keep checking this deflection. See, that seems to be getting even a little bit tighter, so that's something you'll also have to be attentive to. Just how tight you're getting things. But I think that's going okay. We'll have a moment of truth here soon on if this is going to be a satisfactory fix or not. Well, you know what? We actually have a little bit of a belt misalignment here on our AC compressor, so we're actually going to back this off a little bit before we keep cranking. So again, that's cracked loose. Belt is still a little tight. Let's go ahead and loosen up that. That might have been the reason for a little bit more turns of the ratchet than I was expecting. So it's always good to just double check. Make sure everything's lined up. Not doing a whole lot more besides crank, pulley, and AC compressor and alternator here, so nothing too complex, the dual belt system. There we go, so that compressor looks good. Now we'll just make sure we are aligned on the crank. We do appear to be aligned on the crank, so that's good. I'm just going to retighten. okay. Just being mindful of that compressor. Tight there on that. Feels pretty good, pretty healthy, I would say. So now we're going to switch back over to our 12. Kind of going slow and steady here with this 12. We don't, again, have to race. Getting pretty tight. Don't have to kill it, just need it to be secure. Check our belt deflection. That still seems pretty good compared to where it was. Okay, so that feels pretty good. I'm gonna go back in with the 14, snug this guy up. Compressor's still looking good. We'll do a check on the crank. Again, we're using a 1/2 inch kind of longer ratchet here, so again, we don't have to kill that. Do a belt alignment check on the crank, which looks good. Again, we're going to check belt deflection here. Nice and taut, pretty tight, I would say, so feeling pretty good about that. Ended up getting the alternator a little bit more dirty than I was hoping to, but that's okay. So far, there's no real red flags as to why this will not work, but we will not count our chickens quite yet. So we got everything all tightened up. We're gonna plug that guy right in. Okay. And go ahead and take this off. We're going to reattach primary power. And then we're also going to reattach our 1/0. Make sure that primary power is sitting in where it needs to be. Yep, so we are in our groove. Go ahead and get a 10 to tighten that up here in a moment. We're not gonna push this pin down just until we know for sure that everything's gonna be staying in its spot. Go ahead and get this 10. Just make sure we align with this copper lug as much as possible, because again, we're clamping down factory output as well as aftermarket output. And this stud we do not need to kill. You can see I'm really just tightening it with my hand choked up on the ratchet here. So again, don't need to kill that. Feels pretty good. Okay, moment of truth. We'll get the battery reconnected. Got remote start here. We're going to bypass the hood switch. Start with the hood open. Just do one more double check. Alternator is mounted. Tension is set. Power connected. 4-pin connected. Power going back. Okay, small spark. Just means there's a load on the system. Things come into life. That is normal. Do not be afraid of that. Such low DC current will not hurt you. although it will scare you. It scares a lot of people still, especially when you hook up a high output lead to an amplifier. All right, so we don't need to kill that, but we just need that tight, so that does not come loose. Okay, let's go ahead and get our garage open here. And here we go. The voltage is sitting pretty good. Alternator is obviously functioning. I'm going to go ahead and hook up some DBOM multimeter. It's a basic Craftsman one to these battery terminals and show you guys the charging. Move you over here. Didn't hear any belt squeal on startup, so that's a good sign as well. We'll fix this ground cable in a second. Here we go. Ground cable down where it's supposed to be. Have some more sheathing to put on that guy. That comes from alternator positive from the fuse that you see right here. Go ahead and get that thing placed. Looks good. Alternator still looks good. Alright, so basic multimeter with some snap-on alligator clips and fluke leads. We're just checking for voltage right now. We have a full load on the system. We have compressor running, wipers going consistently, and then we also have our brights on. You can hear the compressor cycling on and off there, and the load from the vehicle responding to that. So there is a 14.2 reading. Again, very healthy, to be expected from a newer alternator, especially a higher amperage one. I'll talk through this here in a minute, but you can see block ground right here is framed battery, alternator positive running behind the radiator to the fusible link. The main kind of link between preserving still the factory charging system cable there, and then having our newer one as well. Again, alternator is still looking good. I'll show you guys that one more time. Again, a little hard to see down there. Go ahead and leave this thing running for a bit. A little bit more light for you. Again, the new Denso unit. Go ahead and put this in. Feeling pretty good about that. So we'll let it idle, let it run. This should be another 15 amps of headroom, more than the car needs. 15 amps hopefully to help supply the audio system demand and not experience too much voltage drop across the 1-aught cable running back to the vehicle. So thanks for watching. I'll let you know if anything else develops, and Consider this a nice success, nice experiment. Good to know for anybody, Honda owners out there that run the 2.3, the F23A1 variant of the 2.3. That is going to be, so this is in the 99 CL. Shut that down with the remote. Okay, so this is something worth knowing. Again, it was a forum post. I'll make sure to post it down below from an audio standpoint. But so this is the F23A1 variant of this Honda engine. This is present in this, obviously, year of CL, as well as I believe some surrounding years of CL. However, what's interesting is this body is more similar to the 94, 97 Accord. However, this F23A1 was also present in my 01 Accord Coupe 5-speed. So this F23A1 is used in abundance across the Honda lineup from the, 94, 97 Accords are more the 2.2. I believe they had a 3-liter. And then when you went 98 to 02 Accords with the famous transmission trouble, you're looking at usually the 2.3 as well as the J series in there too. So F and J in there, and then the CL also has a 3-liter variant, I believe. So yeah, interesting Honda history, but for the most part, again, nice successful experiment here. And we're going to start it up, let it run for a little bit longer, make sure this alternator is good. Again, we're kind of past the point of no return as far as returning it, but I'm pretty comfortable with how it is performing thus far. That deflection still feels pretty good. Again, that's your biggest consideration when we're doing this job, is just trying to get that deflection right. It'd be nice if it had an auto tensioner like the modern vehicles, TL specifically, stuff like that. But I'll leave you guys there, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll link, again, some articles from the audio community down below, as well as this Denso part from Rock Auto. So yeah, next will be just rear brakes, probably on the weekend. Front right ABS sensor will be pretty easy. Get a chance to show you guys they're usually mounted on the wall, but the quick jack's over there. So stay tuned, and I'll see you guys in the next one.